Hello everyone, you have come to Tata Comic Preview channel. This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. Although the people in the distance didn't understand what was going on, the calabash little King Kong's punch had triggered the lightning tribulation, which shocked everyone and left them dumbfounded. Under the might of the heavens, Mr. Yu actually became calm. He raised his head slightly, and his eyes flashed with a trace of reminiscence. He reluctantly took out the purple glassware, which was rippling with bright red blood. The glassware reflected his face, which was unusually painful. Yu raised his head and poured the bottle of blood down his throat. His eyes were empty, without any light. Yunxiao's face was extremely solemn. He was the closest to Yu, so he could see the changes in his expression. Even he had sensed the surging power in the bottle of blood. Bang! A burst of power suddenly burst out from Yu's body, shaking the surrounding air. His black robe was shattered at this moment, and his veins popped out. His body swelled to more than twice its original size, and a crimson-red color appeared on his back. A meridian as thick as a finger appeared on his spine, beating as if it was alive. Li's pupils shrank, and he cried out in horror, "The zoo branch!" Bang bang! Yu's body continued to expand as the red meridian throbbed. The taillight sword in his hand also emitted a strange red light, which opened up a space under the heavenly might. The whole process seemed extremely slow, but it was also extremely fast. In the moment of the thunder and lightning, Yu had undergone a tremendous change, and its aura made Yunxiao feel extremely suppressed. Clear Sky Technique, Sword 13. He didn't move, but under the heaven's might, a sword light rushed out, as if Yu's entire person had become one with the sword chi, and they were indistinguishable. The thunderbolt broke apart and met the gored little King Kong's fist. Yunxiao's face changed in horror as he muttered to himself, "This sword intent is dense." Boom! The two forces collided with each other. One was the red sky, while the other was the might of thunder. The sky was divided into two distinct colors, and they were in a stalemate. Voila! The gored little King Kong's body suddenly shattered at this moment. His body, which was condensed from ninth-tier materials, could not withstand the lightning and sword technique. He opened his mouth in horror, and soon his head gradually dissipated, revealing the red heart of stone in the sky. The lightning and thunder that filled the sky also broke through the clouds and dissipated under this sword. As the sun shone down, the heaven's might that had been pressing down on the hearts of every martialist finally dissipated, and everyone heaved a heavy sigh of relief. On the other hand, Yunxiao's face was extremely unsightly. With a few flashes, he rushed forward and opened the primordial heavenly eye between his eyebrows as he cried out, "A pupillary ability." The shattered metal materials and heart of stone were instantly collected by him. Yu's face darkened as he took a step toward Yunxiao, raised his sword high again, and slashed down. That demonic red light appeared in the sky and turned into 10,000 rays of sword chi. Yu was determined to kill him, or else he would cause endless trouble. Although he began to feel a violent backlash in his body, and he did not know what would happen next, at this moment, he felt an endless power being born in his bloodline. It was the best time to kill Yunxiao, and if he missed it, he would never have another chance. Yunxiao's heart skipped a beat as he felt thousands of sword beams penetrating his body, about to tear him into pieces. "You're very strong, but you're not strong enough to kill me." Yunxiao's eyes were also filled with ruthlessness. After collecting the broken body of gored little King Kong with his primordial heavenly eye, he did not retreat or dodge, but walked toward Mr. Yu. Yu wanted to kill him, and he wanted to kill him too. "Kid, are you crazy?" The demonic dragon's anxious voice was heard. "With your strength, you'll be dead under this sword light." Yunxiao's face was filled with determination as he said coldly, "Not necessarily. Your soul and mine will merge into one now." "No." The demonic dragon was shocked. "Even if you merge them together and display the dragon-breaking fist, you won't be able to block his Clear Sky Sword 13, unless you have the indestructible golden body now." "Shut up." Yunxiao shouted angrily. "Why are you talking so much nonsense? Just do as I say." His soul directly manifested in the Divine Realm tablet, and he grabbed the Kunwa Divine Tree, which had a bad premonition and was about to escape, and said, "I'm really sorry this time. Go back to 2 or 3 months ago. I'll make it up to you after this." Lil Wu shrunk rapidly in his hand and cursed with all his might, but it was to no avail. He quickly turned into the size of a baby and stared at him with a venomous gaze. Yun Chao, who had almost sucked his soul power, said coldly, "If I die, the Divine Realm tablet will be ownerless and you'll have to float in the void for countless years. In your long life, why do you have to be so calculative when you've suffered losses for a few years?" At this moment, the demonic dragon in the depths of his soul also felt the nourishment of the surging soul power. However, he did not look happy at all. Instead, he had a grave and worried expression. He gave a deep roar and began to merge with Yunxiao's soul without any hesitation. A strong light burst out of Yunxiao's primordial heavenly eye between his brows, like a sun shining in the sky, as if it was going to pull the sky into the endless void. Not only that, but after merging with the demonic dragon's soul, his body also began to undergo abnormal changes. He felt as if he had been demonized, and scales began to grow on his body. Large beads of sweat rolled down from Yu's forehead, as if he was in extreme pain. He endured the changes in his body and roared as he pressed down with even more force. He shouted desperately, "Sword 11. Yunxiao's appearance was also very terrifying. His immemorial heaven's eye was activated to the extreme, and wisps of blood burst out of his pupils, which were even about to break. Who will die and who will live will depend on this. Golden tadpole-like runes condensed in the pupils of the primordial heavenly eye, and suddenly exuded a calm and unsophisticated air. A purple cauldron shot out of the eye and fell into Yunxiao's hand. He shot out a few golden tadpole-like characters that landed on the purple. Instantly, a majestic and solemn ancient charm was transmitted, as if a singer was singing. The cauldron of mountain and river was controlled by his immense soul power, and it kept changing. Rays of light shot out from the cauldron like colorful lanterns, and also like fireworks in the sky, becoming more and more magnificent and dazzling. In the distance, Shang's mouth was wide open as he looked at the glimmering golden tadpole-like characters on the cauldron of mountain and river. His mind was completely blank. The rest of the people were also shocked and didn't know what was going on. Such a brilliant and colorful profound level weapon didn't have any ancient charm. It gave them a strange feeling, as if within those lights, there was a space of its own and it didn't belong to this world. "I don't care how many swords you have. I don't believe that you can break this cauldron of mountain and river." Yunxiao roared, and his primordial heavenly eye began to crack inch by inch. But, an infinite soul power gushed out of it, driving the purple cauldron to crash into the sword beam. Yu's 11th sword had just slashed into the light of the cauldron of mountain and river and seemed to have disappeared without a trace. It was as if the power of a realm was crushing towards him like a wheel. "Wing!" Shang shouted in shock. Wing immediately recovered from his shock and charged forward. Yu's sword radiance was being devoured by the light of the cauldron of mountain and river. He looked at the cauldron that was crashing towards him in horror. His body was also suffering from the backlash of his bloodline power. He could barely move. He was also an alchemist, so he could naturally feel the endless power of the cauldron. It was not an ordinary 9th-tier mystic artifact at all, or it would have been impossible for it to devour the sword light of his tail-light sword. Bang! Just as the cauldron of mountain and river was about to come, the primordial heavenly eye between Yunxiao's eyebrows finally could not hold on any longer and exploded with a bang, interrupting the surging soul power. Pfft. Yunxiao's heart trembled, and he coughed up a mouthful of blood. He looked unwillingly at the rapidly shrinking cauldron of mountain and river, whose light was gradually fading, and a feeling of helplessness welled up in his heart. Just a few dozen meters, and he could have completely annihilated you. Unwilling to give up, the cauldron of mountain and river quickly turned back into a miniature cauldron and fell back into Yunxiao's hand, lifeless and without any aura. Pfft. The fusion of the demonic dragon in his soul had also reached its limit. The two souls shot out in an instant. His sea of consciousness was ravaged by the spiritual storm. He couldn't help but spit out another mouthful of blood and almost fell from the sky. Big Brother Yunxiao. A crisp sound came as Yifan rushed into the battlefield, held Yun Xiao, and quickly retreated back to the warship. Yuan Fu was also caught by Wing and brought back to the Four Extremes sect. Shang quickly checked Yu's injuries, especially the red meridian on his back, and his eyes were filled with joy. You formed the ancestral vein. Li was also extremely excited. However, Yu wasn't happy at all. His face was extremely pale, and he kept spitting out blood. He said with difficulty, Lord Shang, if Li Yunxiao is not killed, he will bring endless disasters. Shang's expression turned serious as well. He looked at the Netherworld battleship in the distance with a heavy heart. If the purple cauldron that had just been revealed was really a saint artifact, then this brat had 2 saint artifacts on him. This was definitely a heaven-defying, ominous sign. Tang Jia also felt a chill run down his spine. It seemed that being injured by Yun Xiao at that time was not an injustice at all. But now, he was no longer confident. The only people he could bring out were Wing and Shan Yongzi. If they were to lose more, it would be a big question whether they could survive the attack, let alone dominate the demon plane and find Noah's ship. Brother should we fight or retreat? Tang Jia had the intention to retreat and asked. Shang gave him a look and began to hesitate. Although he was sure that Yun Xiao had no more trump cards, he could not make a decision as Yun Xiao's Calabash Warrior and Purple Cauldron had exceeded his expectations. Li's heart suddenly moved. She looked into the distance and said, Lord Shang, I can sense a strong demonic qi, it seems to be very violent. Can I use it? Shang's eyes brightened. I'll try. Li said. She took the mini war drum from her waist and started beating it. Every strike followed a certain pattern, and a faint sound wave spread into the distance. Big brother Yun Xiao, are you alright? Yifan helped Yun Xiao back to the warship. Seeing him constantly vomiting blood, he took out a few medicinal pills and tried to feed him. Yun Xiao's face turned pale as he stopped her and said, I'm fine. Your pill is useless. Yifan felt the surging power in Yun Xiao's hand, and it did not look like he was injured. Then you're the one who ran. With a pale face, Yun Xiao shook his head slightly and sat cross-legged on the warship. He made an incantation gesture with one hand, and a faint golden tadpole-like character appeared in his palm. Then, he began to perform the Great Expansion divine technique to regulate his breath. Forcefully throwing out the cauldron of mountain and river had already exceeded the limits of his soul power. Now, not only was his soul power rapidly depleting, even the demonic dragon was severely injured from the forceful fusion and had fallen into a deep sleep. Feng Zhu scanned Yun Xiao with his divine sense and found that his aura was strong and did not look like he was injured at all. He comforted Yifan, his soul power should be injured. As long as his main body is fine, he will recover sooner or later with some rest. Yifan finally calmed down. The expressions of the people from Empyrean 1 Pavilion had changed dramatically. They stood aside, not knowing what to do. In this situation, they couldn't run or not run. The warship suddenly fell silent. At this time, the woman from the Empyrean 1 Pavilion who was in charge of the warship said, Lady Qing Luo, do we still turn around and leave now? Qing Luo felt that she should consult Yun Xiao at this time, but he was already meditating, and it was not appropriate to disturb him. She looked at the Four Extremes sect in the distance. Apart from the faint drum sounds, there seemed to be no other movements. Let's wait and see. Make preparations to evacuate, make sure you can leave as soon as you receive the order, she added. Everyone in the Temple of Holy Fire was floored. This was what a super sect should say, but the women of the Empyrean 1 Pavilion all looked like it was only right. The old man Wu Zun suddenly looked at Yifan and said, Little brother, how many more of that level of martial intent condensed pill you used before? I'm willing to pay a lot of money to buy it. He looked at Yifan's dazed expression and chuckled, don't think that I can't afford it. The Empyrean 1 Pavilion is one of the 4 core members of the Merchant Union. We are not only powerful but also powerful. He suddenly stopped talking, only to see Yifan and the others looking out of the battleship in shock. He also looked over in shock, only to see a long shadow flying in the sky. It looked like a snake or a dragon, and it had huge wings that looked like a flying dragon when it spread open. On the back of the bird, there was a faint figure standing. The snake was several miles away, but the aura it exuded was enough to shock everyone. Could that be the nine-winged spirit snakebird, one of the two eighth-order demon beasts in the demon land? Shenli asked in surprise. A rank 8 spirit snake nine-winged bird. Everyone from the Empyrean 1 pavilion was shocked. Qing Luo said in a deep voice, how could there be a person on the back of an 8th-order monster beast? Could he be a beast tamer? A beast tamer who tamed 8th-rank beasts? Shenli was shocked. She only felt that the figure standing on the back of the nine-winged bird spirit snake was somewhat familiar, but unfortunately, her strength was low, so her vision was limited. When she got closer, she exclaimed, Shen Feng, the leader of the skeleton mercenary group, Shen Feng. What? Qing Luo was shocked and suddenly felt a sense of foreboding. Those demons were from the skeleton mercenaries. Then, she hurriedly gave the order to escape, but to her horror, she realized that the space had been locked. A sealing force appeared around the Netherworld warship, trapping it. Shen Feng stood on the nine-winged spirit snakebird and coldly looked at Empyrean 1 pavilion. He then turned around and looked at Yu, who was covered in injuries. He frowned and said, Mr. Yu, you're injured? His gaze fell on the battle drum in Li's hand, and a hint of surprise flashed through his eyes. I was wondering why the bird was so violent, so it was you. There's an ancient aura on the drum, are you Mr. Yu's partner? It's actually Shen Feng. Yu was overjoyed. He struggled with no regard for his injuries and laughed, the heavens are helping me. I didn't expect that you would be able to tame the nine-winged spirit snakebird by yourself. Shen Feng, help me. Shen Feng nodded. Of course. I still need your help with some matters. Leave this place to me. He immediately saw through the situation in front of him, so he instantly cast his domain and locked everyone in the field. A powerful pressure pressed down from the sky, and all the people of Tianyi Chamber of Commerce were drenched in cold sweat. As if they had felt the power of heaven before, it was difficult for them to have the heart to resist. Shen Feng, I don't care about the others, Yu said. But there's a man named Li Yunxiao among them. You must kill him. You can't leave him alive. His eyes were full of killing intent, and his fear of Yunxiao had already reached the bottom of his heart. He deeply regretted not killing Yunxiao in the soft song grove. As you wish. Shenfeng's face was calm and expressionless. He stood on the back of the nine-winged spirit snake and flew toward the Netherworld warship. Qing Luo and the others could feel the two powerful auras approaching. Their faces turned pale, and they regretted not escaping earlier. We are from the Empyrean 1 pavilion. She said in horror. If you dare to kill us, there will be no place for you on the heavenly martial continent. Yunxiao? The old man, Wu Zun, was also frightened. My lord, didn't you want to kill Li Yunxiao? Just kill him, there's no enmity between us. You talk too much. As a warrior, you don't even have the awareness of death. No wonder you can live to such an old age. It's time for you to die. A look of disdain flashed in Shenfeng's eyes. He shouted and threw a punch. He was a 9-stars martial supreme, a peak existence below the great emperor realm. Even the Netherworld warship swayed under this punch, as if it would be destroyed at any time. Everyone from the Hall of Holy Fire turned pale. Feng Zhu and the others were anxious. They quickly thought about it. They had to make sure Yi Fen left no matter what. At this moment, Yunxiao suddenly opened his eyes, which were as calm as water. However, his soul power had not recovered yet, so he looked extremely tired. He wasn't afraid. He was ready to throw out the Divine Realm tablet if something went wrong and hide in it with everyone from the Temple of Holy Fire. Although there was no spiritual qi in the Divine Realm tablet now, it was still very safe to hide inside. At least, those below the peak of the Martial Emperor realm would not be able to break it. As for those from Empyrean 1 pavilion, he would just let them die on their own. Boom boom boom. The Netherworld battleship did not shatter from Shenfeng's punch. Instead, a beam of light appeared in the sky and shot toward his fist force. He frowned and changed the direction of his fist at the last minute. He smashed at the beam of light. The two forces collided in the air, and the light illuminated half the sky. Everyone looked up. After the light dissipated, a huge gold coin appeared in the sky, shining brightly and blinding. Money Chamber of Commerce. Tang Jie's face instantly turned ugly, and his eyes were full of anger. That huge gold coin was actually a flying profound level weapon, similar to a battleship. It was extremely huge and took up half of the sky. However, its shape was pleasing to the eye and it looked very rich. And soon, Yunxiao saw a familiar figure on the gold coin. The man was also looking at him with a nod and chuckled, "Li Yunxiao, it's really satisfying to see you sitting there and waiting for death. I really want to see this expression of despair a few more times." Yunxiao raised his head, picked his nose, and flicked out a piece of booger. "Did I?" The man's mouth was wide open, and his face darkened. He had wanted to see Yunxiao's face after the disaster, but his frivolous look made him gnash his teeth in hatred, and he regretted saving this guy. "Qian Wudi, how dare you go against me?" Tang Jia roared in anger from a distance. That man was Qian Wudi, who had appeared in Mount Meru. His aura was much stronger than before. He was already a genuine martial emperor of the Seven Constellations realm, and his aura didn't seem to be simple. He turned a deaf ear to Tang Jie's words and said fiercely to Yunxiao, "I really want to slap your disgusting face." Yunxiao raised his middle finger and said contemptuously, "If you have the ability, come down yourself. Also, even if you didn't attack him, he wouldn't be able to hurt me. Don't think that I owe you my life. You can try to ignore it." Qian Wudi frowned. Although he did not see the battle earlier, Yunxiao's extremely weak look at the moment could not be faked. If he had not made a move just now, he could not figure out how Yunxiao could have dodged Shen Feng's overbearing punch. An old man beside Qian Wudi, who was the one who attacked just now, showed extreme displeasure on his face and snorted, "Young master, this young man is too rude. Why don't we wait and see how they die?" Tang Jia was so angry that his face was as ugly as a pig's liver. Qian Wudi was blatantly looking down on him, as if he wasn't worthy of talking to him. A strong killing intent burst out from his eyes. Shang frowned. He seemed to understand Yunxiao's words. He was also a man with a supreme-grade mystic artifact, which had its own space inside. If he hid inside, it would be difficult to break it without the power of a peak 9th tier. When the Empyrean One Pavilion's people heard that the old man didn't care about it, they started to panic. Qing Luo also hurriedly shouted, "Lord Zhang Hanja, don't listen to this kid's nonsense. I'll never forget what you did just now. Please, Lord Zhang Hanja, defeat the enemy and we'll definitely repay you." Qian Wudi fell into deep thought. He had come to ask Yunxiao for a favor, but it seemed that the other party was not giving him face, so he said, "If I'm not wrong, your soul power should be damaged. I'll help you defeat these strong enemies and give you a sky soul grass in exchange for one item on you. How about it? Tier 9 spirit medicine, sky soul grass." Yunxiao was shocked. Such a heavenly treasure was very rare even for a 9th tier martial emperor. Moreover, it was a sky soul herb that was specially used to nourish the soul. Its value was so high that it was difficult to measure. His heart moved, and he seemed to have understood what Qian Wudi wanted. "I understand. In terms of value, that thing is actually not as good as the Sky Soul Herb, but now that the 2 meetings of the Merchant Union are about to be held, that thing's value has doubled."